Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is Harry Brelsford from SMB Nation, your friend, your ombudsman, hopefully your independent voice. And I'm talking about the whole SMB Nation organization, but our role is to look on the inside from the outside. So we're on the outside looking in, keeping an eye on Microsoft and calling it like it is. And something we've been doing for just had our 16th birthday. So thank you for joining us. And especially for those that we haven't met in the past, you can learn all about us at smbnation.com. Couple of announcements. If you go to smbnation.com, you'll see that we have pivoted our theme, and that's a big deal to us, is that you need to be thinking about starting over, or if you've been an IT pro or an employee, you might well be starting up. Lots of change in the professional job market on all sorts of levels, not the topic of today, a future webinar for sure, but I want you to think about deploying Windows 10. For some of you, it might be a chance to start over in terms of the kind of consultancy you have. And then there's maybe one or two of you that have left Fortune 1 IT and you want to start up as a consultancy, and Windows 10 would be a momentum builder, certainly a door opener to get in and get some clientele. With that said, yesterday we had our launch of the 9-city tour in Redmond, Washington. So robust crowd. Let me tell you, if you go up on Facebook to the SMB Nation page, you'll see them all lined up for pizza. Grant, who's your speaker today, was the speaker yesterday, so he did a double header. And then they're off to New York. So they're presenting in New York on Monday, the 29th, and then about 10 days later, I believe it's Atlanta, followed by Chicago. You can sign up. You can learn about this roadshow. It's complimentary. Go to smbnation.com. Look for the roadshow advertisement over in the far column and click on that. You'll go to our site where you can sign up complimentary. With that said, be sure to use the chat feature for your questions. Jenny will be sure Grant sees those and responds appropriately. And then finally, this is day 2 of a 3-day series. So yesterday was part 1. Today is part 2, deploying. And then tomorrow's special topics, including Office 365 with Windows 10. That's part 3. It's noon Pacific, 3 p.m. on the East Coast. Well into happy hour, if not later, over in Europe. So thank you for joining us. And then very, very early over in Australia. So thank you for joining us. With that said, Grant, as usual, I've done too much talking, sir. I'm going to hand the talking stick to you. Let's rock.
Thanks, Harry, and welcome everybody to deploying Windows 10. My name's Grant Thompson. I'm a solutions architect and one of the founding partners of MG Technology Group. We're a cloud services provider based out of Seattle, Washington. So today we're going to talk about deploying Windows 10 and some of the different things that go into that. The first question that I get a lot is it really free? Microsoft announced early on that they were going to give away the upgrade to Windows 10 at no cost. So if you own Windows 7 or 8 or 8.1, you can get Windows 10 for free. You do need to go through a reservation process. That comes directly through Windows Update to your PC or your customer's PC. They'll see a little Get Windows 10 icon down by their clock in what we call the system tray. And that'll pop up, and if they click on that, they can register for getting their free Windows 10 upgrade. If you want to block that as an IT professional, you can, so that you can manage the rollout, but that doesn't prevent them from acquiring Windows 10 under the free upgrade plan. So once that's reserved, Windows 10 will automatically download in the background to the hard drive, and then you can kick off the upgrade once that happens. The upgrade itself takes about 1 to 2 hours. On my Surface Pro 2, it took right up to that 2-hour mark, just under that by about 5 minutes. So it does depend on the hardware that you have, but generally speaking, you know, 1 to 2 hours of not using your computer while it goes through the upgrade process. The upgrade, as far as Microsoft is concerned, is free. for 1 year from availability, which was July 29th, 2015. So the clock is ticking. You have until July 28th or 29th, depending on how they do the math, to do your upgrade to Windows 10 from Win 7 or Windows 8. So this slide shows some of the translation from Windows 7 and Windows 8 in terms of additions, what they, how they map across, because they did change in Windows 10. We have Windows 10 Home, Windows 10 Pro, Windows 10 Enterprise, and Windows 10 for Education. So on the left in each of these sections for Windows 7, if you have Starter, Home Basic, or Home Premium, you're going to end up with Windows 10 Home. If you have Professional or Ultimate, you're going to end up with Windows 10 Pro. And then likewise from on the Windows 8 side, if you have Windows 8, 8.1, you're going to go to Home, or if you have Pro, then you're going to go up to Pro, and likewise for Pro for students. You'll notice I mentioned that there is an Enterprise Edition, but there's no Enterprise Edition listed on here. So if you, let me put a little circle around this down at the bottom in the footnotes here, you can see that the Enterprise Editions are actually excluded from the free upgrade. And the reason for that is because to get the Enterprise Edition, you have to have a Microsoft volume license agreement, and likely you're going to have what they call software assurance, which will entitle you to the upgrade anyway. So if you are an enterprise customer, talk to your volume licensing or enterprise licensing specialist, and they can help you get Windows 10. But for everybody else, it's free and you can do it yourself. Let's talk next a little bit about the differences between some of those additions and what that means. So consumer versus enterprise. In enterprise, and education is really considered to be on parallel for the most part with enterprise, but there's special pricing available for academic institutions. So domain join is not in Home, but it is in Pro, Enterprise, and Education. That's very important for businesses that want centralized management of the identity policies and things like that. Direct access, which is a technology to access corporate resources from outside the corporate firewall, maybe from a coffee shop or a remote office, is only available in Enterprise and Education. Windows to Go, which is the ability to actually put Windows on a certified USB stick that you could take with you and run on someone else's PC if you needed it, and then bring it back to your office. BitLocker, which is a security feature to protect and restrict the applications that users can run. Branch cache, and start screen group policy, which is the ability for corporate to dictate how the start screen is set up for their corporate users. Also, enterprise and education, you can upgrade from Pro to Enterprise. This will be important a little bit later in this webinar. I'll talk about how we can deploy Windows 10, and one of the features there is the ability to push out a new product key. This is great, for example, if a customer buys an off-the-shelf PC and you want to bring it into your corporate fold, you can actually put the product key into that machine and upgrade it without needing any media. You don't need a DVD, you don't have to download anything. It'll just reboot the computer and switch it from Pro to Enterprise. I also learned yesterday at the 2016 Roadshow's launch that you can actually also do that same thing from Home to Pro. So if you had a PC or your customer bought a PC that had Home loaded on it and they purchase a Pro license, you just put the product key in, reboot the machine, and it'll come up as a Pro, which will give you those business features that are needed. Enterprise and Education also have Windows Store for Business, which is a way to deploy applications and also restrict applications that are accessible to users through the Windows Store. So that gives us two different stores, kind of the general Windows Store and now Windows Store for Business. We also get mobile device management, very important as devices are becoming more prolific. Users no longer have a single desktop or a laptop. Now they'll often have a desktop, a laptop, a tablet, a phone, and so mobile device management helps us manage all of those devices securely, and also whether they're owned by the user or by the business. So you can have some management control over a user-owned device without taking the device away from them or deleting their data if you needed to delete corporate data and things like that. Another feature is in Pro and above is the ability to join Azure AD. Tomorrow we're going to talk a little bit about Windows 10 and Office 365. Azure AD is the identity management that backs Office 365 and other Azure services, and you can join PCs to an Azure Active Directory for that customer. So now you get some management, although it's not quite as powerful yet as on-premise Active Directory, but you get some management and control and security through that. And you can also enable single sign-on with third-party applications using Azure and Azure Active Directory. Also, enterprise and education, as well as Pro, is BitLocker. BitLocker is the encryption technology that would protect a hard drive should it be stolen. You leave your laptop or tablet in a cab or an Uber, and someone tries to get access to that data by removing the hard drive and connecting it up to another PC. Since they don't know your credentials to log in, and there's protection there, the drive would be encrypted, and so they wouldn't be able to gain access to that. Credential Guard and Device Guard, those are really enterprise features. They require additional hardware support. They're advanced security features to help thwart cyber attacks and things that enterprise really need. Fantastic advances in technology to provide more security against those types of attacks, which, as we know, have become more of an issue. There's also the concept of Windows as a service. Microsoft is really moving towards a much more rapid development cycle. They are doing internal testing and deciding what features are working well, where they might find security flaws that need to be fixed, or where they might be changing something based on feedback from customers. Then they test that internally with a very small group. Once that group signs off on it, it goes to a larger group at Microsoft, and then it moves out into what they call the Windows Insiders, which you can actually sign up to be part of. And there's two rings in there, two levels in there. One's the fast track, which gets builds first, and then there's kind of general insiders who get the builds after they exit the fast track loop. And then finally it gets released to the public. Then they gather feedback and continue that cycle over again. And what it's done is enable them to speed up the development and testing of Windows so that it can be updates, new features, and fixes can be released more frequently and tested in more real-world scenarios much quicker than it used to be before. And so this is really providing us with an evolving Windows, and so we're seeing new features and new things come out more frequently than waiting for a complete new version of it. And that's very exciting. Also, on the security front, it's very exciting because it means that they can get to things much faster. Some upgrade tips. If you're going to upgrade an existing PC from Windows 7, Windows 8 or 8.1 to Windows 10, be sure to uninstall any VPN clients you have. We have a list of clients that are known to cause issues with the upgrade. One of them is the Cisco VPN client, which they end-of-lifed quite a while ago, but many people are still using. And so our general recommendation is just if you have a VPN client installed, a separate piece of software to connect to corporate VPN, uninstall that before you go through the upgrade because it can cause problems during the upgrade. And then once you get into Windows 10, if you're not going to use the native VPN that's built in, you can download a Windows 10 certified VPN client and install that after the fact. Make sure that any PCs you're going to upgrade are fully updated. That includes, if you're running Windows 8, upgrading to Windows 8.1, which is really an update versus a full operating system upgrade. If you're on Windows 7, you just need to make sure you go into Windows Update, check for updates, and install any that are available before you complete the Windows 10 upgrade. If you're on Windows 8, when you do that, it will automatically upgrade you to Windows 8.1, and then you want to check one more time if you go from 8 to 8.1 to make sure that your 8.1 is now fully up to date. And if you're on Windows 8.1, same as Windows 7, just go to Windows Update, check for updates, and install anything that's out there, and then complete the upgrade. Windows 10 has a bunch of checks built into it. They've done a fantastic job in the upgrade process, and so it will look for any known issues that it can find and warn you about those ahead of time, or stop the upgrade, prevent you from upgrading, and give you advice on what you need to do to fix it. Generally speaking, we see greater than 90% success. I'd say it's probably closer to 95 or 97%, just seamless upgrades. And that's a fantastic improvement over years past. So they've really learned an awful lot and invested a great deal of time and effort into making sure that that upgrade process goes smoothly. If for some reason something does happen, they built in a rollback that stays for 30 days. So in my case, I had a Windows Microsoft Surface Pro 2 on July 29th, 2015, the day it was launched. I clicked the upgrade button, and I had one of those VPN clients installed, and at that time didn't know that we were supposed to uninstall it first. It completed the upgrade in about 2 hours, and my networking didn't work. I couldn't connect to wireless, I couldn't connect wired, and so I found the rollback, which is just on the start menu, and clicked the button. 15 minutes later, my computer was right back to where I started. It saves all of your data, so if you have been working on it for a week or 2 weeks or 29 days, you're not going to lose any of that data. It leaves all the data and everything intact and just rolls back the operating system to exactly where it was right before the upgrade. And that's an excellent thing. You don't have to do an extra backup, although we certainly recommend you do, but don't need to go back and restore and mess with restoring data and things like that. It'll roll back right for you. Then you can figure out whatever the problem was, fix it, and then complete the upgrade again. Once you go through the upgrade process, that 30-day timer resets. So when you do an upgrade a second time, then you have another 30 days to make sure that everything works as it's supposed to. Another thing to look out for is TPM, which is another type of device protection. It might block you joining a domain after you're upgraded to Windows 10. So if you're on Windows 10 and you're trying to join a machine to the domain and you can't, oftentimes what you need to do is just disable TPM, join the domain, and then re-enable TPM, and you'll be joined to the domain and TPM will be back on. If you're going to use an ISO file or a burned DVD, make sure you have your product key. Part of the upgrade to Windows 10, the free process, the upgrade is actually embedded in your version of Windows that you have running on your machine. So part of the upgrade process, it validates the product key that's there to know that you're eligible for the free Windows 10 upgrade. And if you're installing from an ISO file or a DVD, it doesn't have a way to do that. And so you need to have your product key from your old version of Windows, be it Win 7, 8, or 8.1, to input during the setup process because it's not going to automatically do that for you. There is a questions section, a little side note inside of the meeting, the webinar here. And so if something comes up and you have a question, feel free to put those in there now, and we'll get to those questions at the end. Likewise, there's also a chat section. If you want to use that, you can use that as well for questions, and we'll take all of those at the end. If we are deploying Windows 10 as an upgrade, our traditional process in the IT world was to do what we call a wipe and load or a wipe and reload. And that was essentially where we would save all of the user's settings and data, and then we would do a fresh, clean install as if it was a brand new PC, rather than going through an in-place upgrade where we put in the disk or download the package and let it actually upgrade the operating system. And that really stemmed because IT professionals over the years saw problems with upgraded PCs, and it was much better for them to know that they were starting from a clean slate and that everything was set up correctly, that there wasn't going to be some remnant that was going to come back later and cause a problem on the device or a problem for the user. Because of the investment that they've made in Windows 10, now we can do a managed in-place upgrade, and it's going to save us a ton of time, and that in turn makes the user experience much better because they don't have to wait as long for the upgrade to complete. We also have the ability to do customization and configuration without re-imaging the device, and I'll show you a little bit about that here in a few minutes. And overall, this is going to reduce your validation and deployment costs. So if you think about our traditional process where we would, get a user's PC, back up all their settings, back up all their data, then we would install a clean copy of the operating system, and then we had to restore all their settings and restore all their data. That was very time-consuming. With the in-place upgrade, Windows takes care of that all for us. It protects all the customer's data or the user's data. It's going to save all their settings. It's going to do a complete clean install of Windows 10. So you're not getting an upgrade as it used to, where it would just sort of replace files and things. It actually makes a copy of the old operating system and installs Windows 10 clean, just like you would have done if you did a wipe and reload, and then it migrates all the settings over, and of course the user's data is already still there. And that's one of the reasons that the rollback feature is possible, because they leave the old operating system completely intact. They're not actually going in and changing anything there. Another thing to note is with a lot of the major upgrades that we're having, or updates that come out through that come through Windows Update, those are actually doing the same type of process where they're doing, not all of them, but the major ones are doing a complete clean install of the operating system, saving the old version back, and that way they ensure that that PC is going to run well for a very long time, because it's not got all these little pieces replaced. Application and device compatibility is always a question and a concern for users as they move from one version of an operating system to another. Fantastic news, the hardware requirements for Windows 10 are the same as they were for Windows 7. So back really 3 versions, if you count Windows 8.1 as a separate version of it. So if you have a PC that runs Windows 7 well, it is going to run Windows 10 well. If you have a PC that runs Windows 7 okay, in our experience it's going to run Windows 10 a little bit better than it ran Windows 7. We've seen computers that were running Windows 7 that were a little bit slow and laggy, but they worked. And installing Windows 10 on them, they're much faster. Sorry, I was holding back a sneeze there. Strong desktop and application compatibility. Microsoft tested an amazing number of applications before releasing Windows 10, worked with vendors to make sure that they were able to mitigate any compatibility issues. Everything that's in the Windows Store that's available for Windows 10 is going to run on Windows 10. One of the great things about having a Windows Store is that there's a bunch of validation tests that happen to make sure that that application is going to run on the operating system. So you don't have to worry about any of the Windows Store apps. Those are all going to be compatible. And then for existing applications, all of the major applications have been tested. Again, I recommend that you talk to your hardware vendor, talk to your software vendors, just to double check. Early on, we saw some hardware that where the hardware vendors hadn't written drivers or done the work that they needed to do prior to launch to have those ready. but those fell in line shortly thereafter, and most within a couple of weeks or a month or so. And so by now, pretty much everything out there should be, but it's worth asking. Call your hardware vendor, or if you have an IT professional, ask them to check it out for you before you do that upgrade, just to be 100% certain that there isn't something that the vendor needs to give you an update, just like you want to do all your Windows updates to make sure that the PC is ready to upgrade. And same thing for applications. I think what you'll find is that, yes, your application is going to run on Windows 10, but it's definitely worth asking. That's the prudent thing to do. As we talked about yesterday, Internet Explorer has been replaced by Microsoft Edge, which is a fantastic new browser. It's faster, it's got a bunch of new features in it. Internet Explorer still ships inside of Windows 10. So if you have websites that aren't compatible with the newer Edge browser, you still have Internet Explorer to fall back on. And in the enterprise world, Microsoft recognizes that they've made some investments in Internet Explorer technology, and that for a very large organization to do the updates that they need to do to their internal applications or websites to get them compatible with the new Edge browser may take them some time. So they're continuing to provide backwards compatibility and support that. That's one of the things that I like about Microsoft a lot, is they're always very careful to provide backwards compatibility and long-term support for everything they release, and they're very transparent about the life cycles of things to give people time to be able to make the changes that they need before something is out of the support contract, or what we call end of life. So deployment choices. So these are both about upgrade as well as for new devices. So first we'll start continuing down, and as an overview of the upgrade process, you can still do the traditional wipe and load process that I described. So if you have existing processes and procedures in place and you prefer to follow those, Microsoft has not taken that away from you. They've left all that intact for you, so you can continue to follow your traditional process. Again, you're going to capture user data and settings. You're going to deploy your operating system image to the device. It might be customized. You might preload applications in your image. You inject specific device drivers based on the manufacturer of the hardware that you have, install the applications that users need that have to be installed post-imaging, and then you're going to restore the user's data and their settings. So it's time-consuming. There are some automation tools out there, and if you've invested in those, you can continue to do that as your standard process. I strongly recommend you look at the newer processes and adopt those over time, because it's overall going to save time, money, and have a better user experience. And then we have in-place upgrade. That's the new upgrade where Windows is going to do the work, and they've done the research to find what are the things that are important to IT professionals and users in terms of the upgrade process, and taken all those best practices and built them into the operating system. Again, automatically preserves all your data, all your applications. It'll automatically preserve or upgrade drivers as need be, settings, everything down to your wallpaper, and anything that you have customized on your PC is going to be preserved. It uses a standard operating system image from Microsoft, so it's not going to be a custom image, but you can do your own customization. And then it'll restore all that stuff back. So it'll preserve all the data, and then it'll put it all back, so the user experience is nice and seamless. And that really is what we would recommend for any device that's running Windows 7 or newer, is to do the in-place upgrade. And with the rollback, if you do have those, 2 or 3 or 5 out of 100 where something does go wrong, you have that rollback to be able to go back to the previous version and then decide, hey, we can fix this and continue to do an in-place upgrade, or it's not worth troubleshooting, let's go to a traditional wipe and load, back up all their data and settings, and then load the new operating system on the device. For provisioning, which would be for a new device, We have a new provisioning tool that I will show you here in a minute, and that allows you to actually customize things on the PC even if the device was purchased off the shelf. So you can apply what they call a package to any device. So you could have done a wipe and load of a clean operating system and use a package to then customize that. But really where we're going here is to make it much easier for users to acquire a new device and for the enterprise or the organization to enforce their rules, customize that device, and make it so that it's standard in the organization. Now, a great example of this is, you have a business maybe that's operating in Seattle, and they have a way that they need their computers set up, and they hire somebody in New York. And so the traditional way that we would do that is we would procure a device for them, bring it into the IT department or to the IT professional's office. We would image that device, set it all up, and then we would ship it out to New York to the user. Now what we can do is we can either tell the user this is what you can buy, you have to buy this particular device. We could give them a budget and say you can buy any Windows device that is within this range of money so that they can pick and choose something that works well for them. Or you could have something that you decide on and you just have it shipped directly to them from the manufacturer, from wherever you're purchasing it. Once they get that device, then they can be given a package file. It's a very small file. You can email it usually, throw it on a USB stick. They could download it from your website, and then they run that package on there, and it can apply all these settings, including transforming the device into an enterprise device by inputting your enterprise product key. Or you could input the professional product key. If you owned professional license and they happened to buy one that had home on it, the package could automatically transform that from home to professional as well. You can add extra items, applications, so that those are preloaded on there, and other configuration items. You could remove things that maybe the original equipment manufacturer or OEM has preloaded on that device. And that's really a new capability in Windows 10, and it's fantastic in terms of streamlining the process to deploy a new device, and also to make that user experience much better too. People are particular about their devices, and it would be great if users could have more control so that they're purchasing something that works well for their particular role. Traditional deployment, so this is what we would do before Windows 10. All of those tools that IT professionals have been using still exist, and Microsoft has not abandoned them. In fact, they've enhanced them. So there is a new Windows Assessment and Deployment Kit that includes support for Windows 10 and still provides backwards compatibility for Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 8.1. There are some minor updates to System Center 2012 if you're using that, or 2012 R2 that adds support for Windows 10. And that can be used not only for monitoring and management, but also for configuration and deployment of applications. There are some minor updates to the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit 2013 that adds support for Windows 10 as well. So if you've been using the Deployment Toolkit, the 2013 version of that, to do deployments of Windows 8, you can just apply those updates to it. Now you can use those same processes for deploying Windows 10. And again, this is Microsoft's commitment back to, people have existing processes and they don't necessarily want to upend those, or at least not right away. They've made minimal changes to the existing deployment processes. So if you're used to deploying Windows 7 and Windows 8.1, it's going to be very natural. It's going to be very comfortable for you to go through that. You're not going to have to learn a whole bunch of new stuff. Again, I can't stress enough that the new tools are amazingly powerful and will save you a lot of time in the long run, but sometimes it takes a while to learn those new tools, develop new processes and things. So basically, you're going to drop in a new Windows 10 image on a device, and then you're going to configure that to be your new master image, and then you copy that image off. You want to use a tool called sysprep, which will actually generalize the operating system so that the network sees it as a brand new PC and not a copy of another PC. Once you capture that image, then you can use it for your wipe and load deployments the same way that we always have, so they haven't taken that away from us. So this is just an overview of the new process, and that is that we're provisioning, not re-imaging. So you take off-the-shelf hardware, could be anything, could be a tablet, could be a hybrid where the screen disconnects, could be a traditional desktop. We're going to apply a provisioning package, and again, that could be delivered on a USB or an SD card. It could be downloaded, emailed. You know, you can really get it from anywhere. You could put it on a network share at the office, and so the user really can grab that PC from anywhere. They can, you know, bring it from home. They can purchase it at a store, and they can apply the provisioning package and be ready to roll, you know, with their corporate settings in place. Enterprise upgrade. So there is in-place upgrades for Enterprise as well from Windows 7 and 8 and 8.1. So there's a difference here. Enterprises can upgrade to Windows 10 from Windows 8 Enterprise Edition. They don't have to do the 8.1 update first. They too get the rollback for 30 days and the ability to do full installs if they need to change from 32-bit to 64-bit, if they're going from a legacy BIOS to UEFI. For those of you who don't know what UEFI is, without getting too technical, it is a fantastic security feature that came out, and essentially what it does is it allows for the computer to know right at the very beginning when you first turn it on, when the computer boots, that the operating system hasn't been tampered with. And that's a very serious cyber attack that we've seen that causes significant harm and generally renders the PC unrepairable. You know, it might still work, but it's infected with something. And using UEFI boot, the operating system is validated that it hasn't been tinkered with before the PC boots. And so that provides protection against that type of an attack. So if you have hardware that supports it, I highly recommend that you take the time to enable that and then do a full install of Windows 10. To do Windows to Go and a boot from a virtual hard drive, you also have to do a full install. Those again are typically enterprise. If you're using third-party disk encryption, you know, if you aren't using the built-in BitLocker that is available for Windows, if you're using some third-party disk encryption, generally speaking, you're going to need to do a full install. Some of the encryption providers out there have a way where you can turn the encryption off, do the upgrade, and then re-enable it or start using BitLocker, whatever you choose and your requirements are. And then, of course, if we're doing imaging, that's considered you know, when you're building your image, you need to do a full install of the Windows 10 image to build that. Likewise, if you have or want to do dual or multi-boot, where you have multiple operating systems on the same PC, you can't do an in-place upgrade for that. Have to do a full install of Windows 10 for that one. Those are pretty rare and more complex situations anyway. Dynamic provisioning, so this is where we can deploy that package out to a user's PC. So we can go, for example, from Pro to Enterprise with just one reboot. We can set up VPNs, so corporate VPNs, we can predefine those on the machine through the package, as well as wireless connections for corporate wireless networks. We can add additional applications and set up a bunch of common Windows settings. One of the demos that I do at the Roadshow is showing this particular process on a brand new PC and showing one of the things we can do with it is disable the camera that's built into the device if it has one. So you can really have some pretty granular control over the device instead of just having, some very basic settings or something like that. You can also enroll in mobile device management, Windows Intune, and as I mentioned before, that's a great tool, even in the SMB market, to be able to manage devices. So particularly if this is a user-owned device, you want management, but even if it's a corporate device, having visibility and management is an excellent thing. There's some basic mobile device management or MDM built into Office 365 if you use that. And then, of course, there's Intune and the Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite available to provide more advanced mobile device management from Microsoft. And there are also third-party MDMs out there, too, that integrate very well with Windows 10 and the new dynamic provisioning. We can do Azure AD join with Auto MDM, and that's where your MDM solution is going to actually handle the device configuration. So you can build a package, which I'll show you here in a moment, and you can have it set up so that when they join your Azure Active Directory from that device, it'll enroll them in MDM, and then MDM will automatically push that package out to that device wherever it is and apply those settings to it so that you can make sure that the device is enforced, that corporate policies are enforced on that device right from the get-go. And the package we're going to configure using software called the Windows ICD, and I'll show you what that is, and we can of course deploy that on a network share, USB or SD, email. And then traditional, we can still of course do installs on bare metal where there's no operating system. We can still use the Windows Assessment and Deployment Kit. The ADK, the Assessment and Deployment Kit, is actually where the Windows ICD imaging and configuration, I can never remember the last one of that, where that tool is. So if you want to install the ICD for building packages, it's part of the ADK install. You'll see a checkbox for it when you go to do that install. And then of course we have the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, which is another tool you can use to deploy Windows 10 and do customization, and then SCCM, which is System Center Configuration Manager, especially if you're in a mid-sized organization or larger. System Center is an amazing suite of products, Configuration Manager being one of them, that allows you to take control, push apps and other configuration things out to custom or user devices. Updates, so we can control updates. In Enterprise, we have the Windows Update for Business. We can still use Windows Server Update Services, or WSUS, and System Center Configuration Manager. So if you're in an environment where you want to centrally manage the updates that go out, this is great for kind of larger small businesses, mid-sized businesses, and enterprises where you want to make sure A, that all your computers are staying up to date, and B, be able to control when those updates go out, which updates go out, and probably have some type of a testing cycle to make sure that all your applications and things will all work smoothly. And so this is one way to do that. It also saves in terms of download, because you can, if you choose, you can download centrally to a Windows Server Update server and then push those updates out over the network instead of every machine having to download things from the internet. So let's go through the ICD here, building a package. I did this as what I call a click-through demo in the interest of time. So, but this is just screenshots that'll show you how it works. So the Imaging and Configuration Designer, there's that word I was looking for. This is what it looks like. So you download the Windows ADK, which is a free download, and install that. There's 4 checkboxes you'll check there. When you check the ICD as one of the options, it'll automatically check the other 3 for you. So what I recommend is, if you're not going to use any of the other tools, download and install the ADK, uncheck all of the boxes, then check Imaging and Configuration Designer. It will automatically check the things that you need to run that, and then go through that. It does download a few gigabytes worth of data to the hard drive where you install it, so that you can build the packages that you need. Once you launch it, you end up at this screen here. You'll notice that there are some packages already built on the right-hand side, and then on the left-hand side there are buttons for new configurations. And so if I say that I want a new provisioning package, it's going to ask me for some very basic information. Where am I going to store it, which will be defaulted, and then you're going to give it a name. So in this case, I'm showing converting a machine from a Windows Pro to Windows Enterprise by publishing the Enterprise product key. So then we click Next, and then we have choices here. Are we going to build a package that is for Windows or for Windows Phone? There's a third option in the current version that has all Windows common components, and then there's just Windows for desktop and then Windows Phone. So you can break those down if you want to build a specific package for the Windows Phone, Windows Desktop, or if you want to build a package that has settings for both built into it. And of course, Windows Phone 10 is when these packages will become relevant for those devices. If you have an existing package and you want to import that, you can do that in this step. I'm just going to skip over that because we don't really need it. On the left-hand side here, you'll see the available customizations and a search box, so you can see a ton of different things. I have settings expanded, and then Windows licensing. Applications is where you could load additional applications. There's a bunch of features. Under policies, just a few up from the Windows licensing is where the setting to turn camera off and all kinds of other things are in there. The first one in settings is certificates, so you could load certificate authority, certificates for your corporation, or anything like that. You could have them preloaded so that those are already on the device. Again, you can see there's just a ton of options here, and although it's not showing here, also is the ability to do the Azure AD join for that device. So in this case, I've just input an enterprise product key. For those of you getting excited and writing the product key down frantically, have no fear. It's a generic product key that won't really work for you. But this product key would actually update a machine to enterprise, but it's a generic product key used with a key management server, so it's not going to do anybody any good if they try to use it. Though it would install, but it wouldn't actually activate the product. So we put that product key in there, customize any other settings, and then I'm going to click on the export button, and it's going to have first ask me to build the package. So again, it's going to have my package name, it's going to come up with an ID for the package, and then I can choose the package version. I can enter a version number. This allows me to keep track of my packages, and also for the PC that it's being deployed on to know whether it's a new package or whether an old package is being deployed. And then there's a package rank down below. So if you are applying multiple packages to a computer and the settings were in conflict, the rank then would determine which package takes precedence over the other package so that the right setting gets applied to the machine. The next two settings, which I'm going to skip over today, are for encryption and security. So first thing we could do is encrypt the package so that the package file and its supporting files themselves are encrypted, so no one could get into anything inside of those or modify those in any way or access any of the data that's inside of those should they get a hold of them. And the second one, package signing, would put the corporate signature using an SSL certificate onto the package so that the machine and the user know that this is a trusted package to apply for security reasons. Obviously, you don't want just anybody sending your users a package and having them apply those and changing settings on the PC. So highly recommend that you use both of these things, but in the demo I skipped over them because they aren't particularly important. And then the output is just the path where the files are going to be created. Once that's done, this ppkg file gets created, and I get links to the output for that. Here you can see the package file itself, and so I could, again, email that. I could copy that to a USB stick, put it on a network share, throw it up on an FTP site, and all a user with Windows 10 has to do is double-click this. It'll pop up a little warning sign saying, you're going to apply a package. If it's a signed package, it'll show them who's the package is signed by. If it's unsigned, then it'll say, this isn't signed, and are you sure you trust this? Those kind of traditional security prompts. And it'll also let them know that it's going to apply settings to their computer, so they have to actually acknowledge, yes, I'm agreeing to have these settings applied to my computer. And then when they click that, it'll go ahead and implement those. In this case, it would apply that enterprise product key, and then it would prompt them to reboot their PC. So they would be, the computer would apply all this stuff, it would shut down, and then it would come back up, and it would be now the enterprise version. Real briefly, I've mentioned it a couple of times, Azure Active Directory. I think this is very important for people to understand, especially in the small business world where you may not have a server on-premise, or you may have one and want to get rid of it as you're moving more things to the cloud. So Azure Active Directory is Windows Server Active Directory, but it's cloud-based. It's multi-tenant. If you're a large or small business, a mid-sized business, or an enterprise, you can actually connect Azure Active Directory, the cloud-based version, with your on-premise directory using a tool called Azure AD Connect. And it's literally 4 clicks to get your on-premise Active Directory connected with the cloud-based version. The cloud-based version is what Office 365 uses for its user authentication, and it provides single sign-on, so access to not only Office 365 tools, but also to Intune, Azure, and almost 2,600 different software as a service applications, most of which are from third parties. So you can have centralized identity management that's cloud-based. You can obviously join Windows 10 PCs to an Azure Active Directory, and then have the ability to enable mobile device management and all the other tools that you might want in terms of managing a machine. And you can do all that over the internet. They don't need a VPN connection back to anywhere, and unless you have to have things on premise, you don't need an on-premise server at all. So fantastic tool, and tomorrow we'll talk a little bit more about Office 365 and Windows 10, and I'm sure Azure Active Directory will come up again. So again, in the webinar, there should be a questions section where you can input your questions. So please go ahead and put those in there. Likewise, there's also a chat section too. So if you have questions, and you can throw them in there as well. My contact information is up on the screen. I wholeheartedly encourage you to use me as a resource. If you think of something an hour from now or 3 days from now, go ahead and send me an email. I try to be as responsive as I can. Obviously, sometimes I'm busy doing road shows and webinars and my job. So if I don't get back to you right away, I'll apologize in advance, but I do try to get back to everybody. So let's see, first question, can you define what appears on the start menu using Windows ICD? So it really depends on the kinds of things that you're going to customize. In Windows 10, as we learned yesterday, the start menu includes things like live tiles, so you can have some management of what appears on the start menu, enabling and disabling those. If you really want to get into the nitty-gritty, I highly recommend that you download and install the ADK and check that box for the imaging and configuration tool so that you get those things, and then you can look at each of the settings. When you click on a setting, a help window, a web page will actually load below it that will give you all the details about what that setting does and provide links to additional information, additional instructions. Next question, provisioning. Boot the file, or after they do this startup stuff first, then they run the file. So the package file would be run after the operating system's installed, or if the device is joining Azure Active Directory with MDM enabled, when they join Azure Active Directory, it's going to force them into the MDM if it's configured that way, and the MDM would then push the package out to the machine and run all of that at the same time. And you can join Azure Active Directory in what they call the out-of-box experience. So when you first turn on the PC and you're going through the basic setup, one of the options at that point is to join Azure Active Directory. You do need an internet connection at that time, but it asks you to connect to a Wi-Fi, or it would connect through a wired connection automatically right before that step. Then you join Azure Active Directory, and again, it would join MDM and push the package to the device. Next question, is there any reason or value to purchasing volume licensing for Windows? Specifically, will future updates be free? So volume licensing is generally meant for companies or organizations that need 5 or more licenses of Windows or Microsoft Office, and it's really best to talk to a licensing specialist or an IT professional about what makes sense for your organization. There are a number of different volume licensing programs and enterprise licensing programs. They all have different benefits, different costs, and so really there's no single answer to that question. Some things like enterprise are only available through volume licensing currently. So if you need the enterprise features that are in there, you're going to definitely want to talk to somebody about volume licensing. So I encourage you to explore that to see if that makes sense for your organization. Next question, how should a value-added reseller or VAR order the Win 10 upgrades for an organization? The upgrade is not offered in a domain or at least in an SBS domain. Further, must the upgrade be completed by 7/29 or can it be ordered by then and installed later? So the Windows 10 upgrade is available for download through Windows Update. It is disabled most of the time by IT professionals, and so what you want to do there is just do a search, jump on Bing, search for the Windows 10 upgrade Windows Update, and you'll find a KB article, and it'll tell you which update you need to install to turn that on or to unblock that. Most SBS folks are using Windows Server Update Services or some other tool to block updates so that they can manage them, and you just essentially want to unblock that particular update as well as the other ones, because again, you want to make sure the PCs are fully updated before they go to Windows 10. Next question, any news about when Win 10 Mobile will be pushed to phones? I don't have a release date for that. Again, I don't work for Microsoft, so I rely on community resources and my contacts at Microsoft. Nothing official has been announced. The mobile market is very tricky because not only do you have Microsoft writing an operating system and releasing it, but you also have another player in there, and that would be the device manufacturers and the wireless carriers. So it's a little more complicated in that world. I do have several Windows phones running the Windows 10 mobile pre-release, and I can say at this date and time I don't have any problems with those devices. I haven't seen anything that makes me think they're not ready for release, but do so at your own risk, and I'm sure it will make a big splash once it is released. It's a fantastic upgrade to the mobile operating system. Next question, Hyper-V on 8.1 didn't present me with any significant issues on the upgrade to Windows 10, so I guess that's a comment. So if you have Hyper-V installed on 8.1, sounds like they went through an upgrade smoothly, which is excellent. Question, do the users need administrative privileges to apply the provisioning package? And the answer to that is no, they don't have to be a machine administrator to apply the package, which is great because that makes it easy. Same thing with Azure Active Directory join. They don't have to be an admin on the device to join Azure Active Directory. You do have to give them permission on the Azure Active Directory side to be able to join. And you can give that permission to all of your users that are in Azure Active Directory or Office 365, or you can restrict it to certain people. So some people can join a device and some people can't. That's up to you. Azure, finally understand what this is about. Going to talk about it tomorrow. What do you suggest I do to start learning this? Clearly, this is a key tool for small businesses if I intend to support them. So one of the things that I mentioned yesterday, because I hear a lot of small businesses, IT professionals who support small business saying, I don't understand what the relevance of Azure is for the SMB market. And what I said yesterday and what I'll continue to say is Azure in 18 months, 2 years, whatever it is in the near future is going to be as important and popular to the SMB market as Office 365 is today. Office 365 is Microsoft's fastest growing product ever, which is amazing considering all they've put out, and Azure is going to be right behind that. In fact, Office 365 runs on Azure. So Azure really is a platform. It's a group of technology all based on standard Microsoft technology, Windows Server 2012 R2, Hyper-V, SQL Server, all of that stuff. And they've built this platform, and on top of that they are running Exchange for Office 365, SharePoint for Office 365, Skype for Business for Office 365. They run Bing on top of Azure. And so you can actually use Azure not only for Azure Active Directory, but for hosting virtual machines, what they call database as a service. If you need a database for an application, be it a web application or an on-premise application, you can actually go and just get a database very quickly and very reasonably right there in Azure. There's a huge list of services, and it continues to grow every day. In addition, there's now partner-hosted Azure. Our company, MG Technology Group, is an Azure partner. So we have data centers, and we actually run the Azure, what they call the fabric, all of those underpinnings on our own hardware in our own data centers. That gives customers choices and flexibility. If you want to learn more about Azure, I certainly recommend that you come to one of the 2016 roadshows if there's one near you, and if there's not, throw a request in and we'll see if the SMB Nation folks can set one up in a town near you. We talk about Windows 10, Office 365, and Azure on that. It's a whole day. And there's certainly a ton of stuff available also on the Azure website, videos and things like that. And you can sign up for a trial account up there and give it a test drive. Let's see, next question, will slides be available? I'm happy to make my slide deck available to anybody who wants it, so feel free to drop me an email, and I will also talk to SMB Nation and see if they're going to publish them as well. Jenny says the recording will be placed on the SMB Nation website within the next 48 hours, so you'll be able to see the webinar. You can see the slides up there as well. Last question, and then we'll need to wrap it up. Once the Windows 10 package is downloaded, must it be installed by 7/29 to get it free, or just received by then, or installed later via USB storage? So as I understand it, you need to complete the upgrade by July 29th, 2016. But you definitely want to check with Microsoft on the fine print on that as far as if you download the upgrade, will you be able to install that post 7/29 if you have downloaded it before then? My guess, and it is just a guess, is that it won't work, that it will go to validate your product key, and after that 1 year's expired, it won't validate any more product keys. One final question just popped in. Any established cost for Windows 10 upgrade once the free period ends so clients can see the savings? If you go to the Microsoft website and search Windows 10 upgrade or Windows 10, you will see an example, although I think they only give the Home Edition up there as an example of pricing, and I want to say it's a couple $100, but I'm I'm doing that completely from memory, so I could be completely wrong, so look it up on your own. But generally speaking, the operating systems are in that range and up depending on the edition that you purchase. It's free now, and the upgrades, like I said, 95, 97% go smoothly, and even if you do have a problem, you have the rollback, and then certainly recommend that you get through that upgrade during the free period. It's a fantastic operating system. Again, I'm completely independent of Microsoft, just a technologist, and I love it. Everybody I've talked to who's upgraded loves it. So I absolutely recommend that you go through the steps that I outlined and get your free upgrade while it's available. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time and hope that this was very informative to you. Please visit the SMB Nation website for information about the roadshow, and I hope to see you at one of those. And if not, we'll be doing another webinar tomorrow at noon Pacific on Office 365, Windows 10, and some other special questions that we got the last time we did this series and from the first two of these. Thanks again.